listen to me carefully, you fat tub of goo.
Oh my God, there she is. There's Rosemary.
Where?
Right there.
Right where?
Straight ahead, across the field.
Is she behind the rhino?
At that same table, there was a quite large woman. And I was wondering, what if this guy, instead of confronting the smoker, had said to the large woman, "What's the matter with you, you fat pig? Don't you know how dangerous it is to be so overweight? Stop eating, for God's sake, and don't you dare get dessert. And what's the matter with you, right?"
I wouldn't be enjoying my life had I not gone to that Jenny Craig Center 5 years ago.
If one overindulges in food, it has a negative effect upon one's whole personality and one's moral being.
That was a good night. Except I felt fat.
That'd be ridiculous.
It's true. Nowadays, the only clothes I can get into were once owned by Pavarotti.
I just want to take a pill and wake up in the morning thin. I don't care if it knocks 10 years off my life or shrinks my brain, as long as it shrinks my belly and all.
Jenny Sacramone. What she needs is her own zip code.
Jersey's a small state. She moves in. She could tip it over.
I like a woman you can grab onto something.
You grab onto Jenny Sacramone, your fucking hands will disappear.
She's so fat, her blood type is ragu.
She's so fat she goes camping. The bears have to hide their food.
When Jenny hauls ass, she's got to make 2 trips.
I'm not going to have sex with any man. No man will want me when I look like this. I don't want to have fat sex. Fat sex is ass.
I was babysitting this 4-year-old, and he told me that he didn't want to eat a chocolate chip cookie because, his mom said he was going to get too big, or he was going to get, people were going to make fun of him. And it shocked me to think that a kid at 4 turning 5 is already thinking about his size. Like, come on.
Dangerous practices are considered more acceptable than being overweight, or, overweight, quotation marks around there. The idea that it's better for someone who is heavier to starve themselves than it is to be healthy.
It's taken me a very long time to become comfortable with it, that's for sure. I was always chubby when I was younger, so I never felt like I fit in with everyone else.
An example of anti-fat prejudice that I've witnessed in my family is being told that I'm fat, or I've overheard other relatives say to my siblings or to my cousins, "Oh, it looks like you've gained weight since I last saw you at Thanksgiving," or a comment along those lines.
Dieting and then binging, then purging took away a lot of time, because instead of actually enjoying a meal with my family, I'm thinking, how do I get away from them so I can get this out of my body?
And I've been called overweight, and it was, I questioned it myself as, well, overweight compared to what? Overweight compared to who? Like, whose standards are these?
My name is Lisa Tillmann. At Rollins College, I teach a course called The Political Economy of Body and Food. My student collaborators and I cover a lot of ground, from eating disorders and steroid abuse to food insecurity and farm worker justice. When I asked the collaborators featured in this film on what topic they wanted to center our work, they overwhelmingly chose cultural narratives of weight, fat, and obesity. In other words, what stories circulate in our culture about fat, and how do those stories impact our bodies, lives, relationships, and public policy.
Baseball pitchers.
Jolly, happy,
Funny.
funny.
Not like as healthy, unhealthy, unhealthy, gross, 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 lazy, lazy, useless,
Sad. Sad.
I can't stop eating. I eat because I'm unhappy. And I'm unhappy because I eat.
something that I never wanted to become.
For myself, I mean, it would really be, you know, just feeling unwanted, kind of, or feeling picked on, or just feeling singled out, you know.
In general, people tend to think that fat, or with quotes around it, are for comic relief. They don't think of them as people who can be taken seriously.
What's gone wrong this week, huh?
We've had visitors.
What did you do, eat them?
Have you lost some weight?
I have, and thank you for noticing.
I thought so. When you were bent over tying your shoes, your wallet didn't look like it was trying to bust out of your ass.
Do you always check out my behind when I'm bent over?
Well, I try to look every other way, but that thing is an IMAX.
Well, I think the most popular, of course, would be, you know, when someone's depressed, very sad, you can get the image of a larger person going to buy a big tub of ice cream and just, you know, sitting in bed, basking and eating ice cream.
They can't stop eating. That's all they think about.
To make fun of you? Why do we do this to ourselves? Every time we get depressed, we eat and eat and eat.
They always say fat people smell.
They probably are unloved.
They have no friends.
I think we assume that it's going to be difficult to be friends with this person almost because of the bias that surrounds it.
They're fat because it's a life choice. They're out of shape. They can't exercise. They can't really move.
They assume that I'm unhealthy, I'm lazy, that I'm physically, you know, not fast or not able to do things that people that are thinner, that they can do.
From where do these gut-level associations and stereotypes come? The answer? From every social institution, beginning with our families. The degree to which our parents and siblings have internalized our culture's fear and hatred of fat has a lasting influence on our own relationships to body, weight, and fat.
My family has been really good about just teaching me, you know, to eat healthy. It's more about being healthy than being any sort of weight.
Fat was never really something that was criticized in our family. We watch a lot of TV, and you know, usually we don't really hold back when we're talking about the folks that we see. But we've never really, at least my parents have never really sat down and really called someone out on who they've seen for being fat as like a character trait.
This quote, I forget which book or reading it was, but the girl was saying that she was talking to her mom, and her mom said, "Hey, better not eat that way or look like me," and just ended the topic like that. Well, my mom actually says that all the time. I've told her many times, I said, "Hey, I know that you're not like happy with your body size, you're not happy with your image. Why don't you just come with me to the gym? You know, I'll show you around, I'll show you what I do." And she doesn't want to go because she's afraid that people will look at her at the gym, look at her differently, and she's told that to me, and it's kind of hard hearing that from her mom.
My sister has been overweight since she was little, and recently, you know, she's been diagnosed for ADD, so she's been getting Ritalin patches on her hip, so it's been making her weight fluctuate in pretty extreme ways. And so, you know, she will talk about different medications in how they impact her weight versus how they impact her ADD, and that always really concerns me.
I went to go visit my grandmother this weekend, and she has Alzheimer's, but she forgets a lot of things. And so she's seen me recently. She's seen me since I've lost weight. But when I got there, she's in a rehabilitation hospital, so she's not doing that well. But she like looked at my mother and whispered, and she not thinking that I could hear her, and she was like, Julie, she's half the size, half. And my parents were like, just ignore her, like she doesn't know what she's talking about. But that still like hit me hard. Like,
the main person that's really like picked on me a lot is my brother, my older brother. He really says a lot about it, and you know, just kind of just saying, oh, you know, you're fat or you need to lose weight, you know. And the bad thing about it is that, you know, like some of those things have like rubbed off onto his children, and they've actually said things.
Whenever I Skype my mom, she would see me and she would say, oh my God, you look like a Mexican, you're dark, you're fat. Whenever I did eat, I just felt disgusted with myself. I could feel the calories, like, you know, like if I ate a French fry, I could feel it going down my thighs, and I'm like, that's disgusting, and I would make myself throw up, even if it's one fry, and not eating anything for the rest of the day. And I would like drink gallons and gallons of freezing cold water and be shivering in the summer heat. My mom actually has suspected that I was doing something because my weight dropped so fast. She said, if you are throwing up, I will take down your door. But I still found ways around it. And so my weight kept dropping until I was like 98 pounds. People would comment and say like, oh, you look really good, how'd you do it? And my mom was like, oh yeah, she just works out. Because she doesn't want a fat daughter. Like, she wants me to be that perfect little girl that she sees me as. But she knows what I am doing. But it got so bad that I was hospitalized with an IV because my body wasn't getting enough nutrients. And my mom and the doctors told me that I had to stop or my esophagus would erode and I would have to be eating through like a feeding tube.
The fear and hatred of fat that circulates within many of our families gets reflected and reinforced in other social contexts. Another important source of discourse about weight and fat is our peers, our friends, both in and outside the school environment.
in high school, when I was diagnosed with a lung disease, I had to go on a heavy dose of prednisone. It has terrible side effects, including weight gain and depression. It's a different look when you're on steroids when you gain the weight, but people don't know. So I remember someone who I had been friends with, and then we weren't friends anymore, but she said to one of my friends how she noticed that I was gaining so much weight, and that like killed me because people just don't know.
And I remember my second day of school, there's this one boy in my class who spent the entire day calling me jelly butt and kept saying I had thunder thighs. And before that, I hadn't really cared too much. But after that, I suddenly stopped wearing shorts to school, and my mother commented on it. And, you know, she talked to me. She thought it was sorted out, but, you know, for years after that, I just never wore shorts. I wore long skirts, I wore pants, but for years I just could not bring myself to wear shorts. And looking at other kids, I never thought they were fat, but it had such an impact on me. And to this day, it just really never occurs to me really to wear shorts.
You know, it's been kind of like ever since, you know, I was 15, it's been like up and down, you know, going up and down in weight. And I went through a height growth spurt, and then like pretty soon, like I started going through like a weight growth spurt, and I put on like, I'd say like 50 pounds in like 3 months. And, you know, and like to myself, I really didn't notice it, you know, but I started like hearing people talk about it, and they would just kind of like mention like, oh, are you gaining weight, or you don't, you know, like and some people would just plainly would say, oh, you're getting fat, you know. It really affected my self-esteem. I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose weight. I didn't know what to do, and I wasn't really like an athletic person or somebody that did like weight training. So I went into basically like a mode where I was just like really trying to avoid eating. And it got to a point where I was eating like one meal every 2 days. I ended up like getting really like weak, and you know, like I wasn't like somebody that lifted weights a lot, but when I tried to get into lifting weights at, you know, when I was down to 190, and I noticed how like my energy was just like shot, you know, and I just wasn't able to really do anything like active like that. So then, you know, I started eating again, and I kind of put on some more weight and everything, but I mean, my most painful would have to be like trying to lose it, you know, like feeling the pressure that other people put on me, that it made me unhappy with myself, you know, and then like, you know, pretty much just abusing my body to lose the weight, to, you know, to try to make these other people happy, you know. And I did some bad things, you know, just, you know, pretty much starving myself, you know.
I was, in society's terms, an obese child. When I went to school, I was constantly ridiculed left and right about being obese, and so was my brother. We just went straight to school, got off the bus, walked straight home without just hearing them talk about us, but we just walked as fast as we could, got inside. The worst experience might have been when I was getting off the bus. My brother was still at school. Since I didn't have anybody to sit with, I sat in the back by myself, and one of them decided to sit next to me, and he made fun of me the whole ride back, kept poking at me. And he was very, very rude to me. I got off the bus as soon as possible, and they actually followed me home. And they kept threatening to jump me just for being overweight. Then they started throwing rocks at me. And I just kept my cool. I went inside because there's no way you can win a battle against like 12 people. So I went inside and I just ended my day there. I think I just went to sleep, stayed in my bed for the rest of the night. Around 7th grade, we both decided to join the football team. We actually lost a lot more weight than we expected to. We started hanging out with the guys because we started winning, and so they started liking us. And while we were hanging out with them, we saw people who were your stereotypical, like not stereotypical, but the way the society defines it, overweight. And so we saw them, and they would make fun of them, and we weren't going to just stand there, so we made fun of them also. We look back and we're like, man, we were pretty bad, because for us to have gone through that for 3 years, and then just all of a sudden just forget about it and do the same things to other kids, is just, it's not right.
As we have heard and seen, stereotypes, prejudices, and pressures about body shape, size, weight, and fat circulate in our homes, with our peers, and in our primary and secondary schools. To what extent do we grow out of these stereotypes and prejudices? And to what extent do we carry them with us into adulthood and onto college campuses?
I felt very accepted since I started school here, so I've never had a problem or any of my friends who would be considered overweight.
Oh, we're terrible. We're a very superficial campus. I think that every day, if you don't look your absolute best, you're gonna get talked about.
But I think you can also find groups of people that, you know, are in gender studies, are in CMC, I work at the radio, that kind of have this like independent and alternative view of society.
You know, you have to look like the girls in the magazines, and you have to have the nice clothes, and you have to be at 0.
Sometimes when I go to the gym and you see the girls working out, There's this girl that was like probably 100 pounds, and she's talking with her friend like, oh my gosh, I want to lose all my fat on my arm. And I'm like, oh my God.
At home, like no one in my family owns a scale. We've never had one my whole life. And then I came here and they're in every room.
You know, just the image here is very, you know, trendy and very fashionable. And really, you know, being fat isn't trendy or fashionable.
I was with a few boys, and a woman walked past and they made a comment about her cottage cheese, and they're like, that is the most disgusting thing that I've ever seen. And I was just like, oh God.
Well, a friend of mine actually, she recently told me how she was at the campus center, and there was a group of guys sitting around a table, and when she was walking by, they were all like, hey, check out that girl. And then one of the boys called out to her, oh, she looks like a cow. And so she came back to the house and told us all, and she was actually crying because of how it made her feel.
And you'd think once you get to college, maybe some of this ridiculous conversation might start to go away, but no. I mean, in a lot of ways, we're still kids. And more than that, if society is supporting this message, why would it change just because you go to college?
I probably don't go a half hour with thinking about how I look, because especially I think this campus is really bad, and it makes you always think about how you're portraying yourself, how you look that day. Everyone talks about how they have their fat days, and so I guess it's impacted me a lot.
And when I came in here, I've heard of stuff like pre-workout, which is just caffeinated drinks, just getting ready for the gym. Protein, which is after workout and you get bigger size. And this was all introduced to me as a freshman, and I knew nothing about it, and I just started taking it up, getting bigger, getting stronger, and I loved it. Can I only imagine if I did take steroids and so if it was just there? I can only imagine how much I would have taken, and I probably would have been just this huge meathead that I would hate today. So
The men are almost worse because, you know, you always see them at the gym, you know, pumping iron, and they don't want to get fat. And then also, I don't think they think to date people who are overweight. And so there's that prejudice from men against women. Difficult question. I don't know, I've never really put any consideration into that. That's a hard question.
Probably not a good question for me just because I don't date, so. Yeah.
I don't really think size really has much to do with relationship. I think it's the chemistry or just the amount of stuff that you have in common.
Probably not. I don't know. That's just, I know my ideal guy, one of the top things is a nice body.
This is actually the opposite. There's a girl who was very, very attractive in 9th grade, and this was the first day of school that I saw her. So the next day that day I told my friend, and by that Wednesday we were going out. Unfortunately, by that Friday we actually had broken up because she was the meanest girl I've ever met in my life.
I mean, I wouldn't say like, no, you know. I think it would definitely be situational, but I think a lot of times body image definitely plays a role in attractiveness.
Having been through the experience myself of, you know, not being, you know, skinny or how you're supposed to look, I think I would give that person a chance just because people don't need to be judged on their body size.
If we had the same likes, we had a lot of things in common, then I don't see why not.
I think that I could see myself and dating someone who is not considered culturally fit, but I don't think that in middle school or high school or even the beginning of college I ever would have felt like that.
My friend, a girlfriend who's a little bit overweight, but she has the best personality. If I found a guy like that, I would not be opposed.
If that person is a kind person then I don't think that his weight should matter.
In relation to like, you know, the norms or whatever, the cultural standards, like I'm definitely more, you know, like just open-minded. I really, you know, ultimately it's really about the person, you know, and the looks just, you know, it's really secondary, but at the same time, you know, I'm not greater than other people. I mean, it affects my judgment as well. But I don't like victimize people for it, and I don't hurt their feelings about it.
The ways we come to think and feel about our own bodies and others' bodies are shaped by another powerful source, the mass media. Each of us in the U.S. is exposed to approximately 5,000 commercial messages every day, and on average, a child interfaces with media 8 to 13 hours a day. Such exposure provides us with information about body, shape, size, weight, and fat, as well as misinformation, stereotypes, and prejudices.
I got a job following fat people around with a tuba. Stop it! Cut it
I think that prior to taking this course, I wasn't as critical of television shows and other forms of media that I watched. At first, I think I would have thought that that was something funny and laughed at that. But in retrospect, it's not funny to be making fun of people because of their weight.
You see it a lot in the news whenever they talk about obesity, you know, they call it the obesity epidemic. These endless montages of headless fat people. It's just them from the neck down. It's focusing on their weight, not them as people. And I think they use the excuse that they're trying to protect people's identities, but every other stock image they use in the news, you know, it's the whole person. So what is it about fat people where it's just so disgusting, I guess, that they can't even show people's heads?
The whole Dove campaign is supposed to be about be beautiful at any size, but in reality they use a larger woman and then they're saying be beautiful, but we're going to use your picture to sell firming cream. So it's going against everything that they have their campaign for.
Fat or fit, the ad is suggesting that being below average can still be considered fat in our society.
Would Jesus bother with whether you're fat or not?
Well, I think Jesus would want us to, you know, the two basic things in the Bible are to eat less and exercise more. And
when I saw it, I was like, wow, to think that someone could go this far, to insult people publicly and in front of others under the guise of religion.
Republicans were trying to push for Chris Christie to run for president. It was all over CNN, Fox News saying he shouldn't run just because he doesn't have the look, meaning that he's too fat.
No one wants a president who smells like bacon after he runs up the steps.
Well, you don't know what he smells like.
I'm just saying no one wants someone who sweats, no one wants someone who looks unhealthy.
I think you should be judged based on what you're trying to do for the country rather than how you look.
I mean, we've made a lot of headway in racial issues, and if you see how ignorant it is to judge people based on their color of their skin, it's the same thing judging them based on their weight.
When it comes to fat, our culture is in a full-blown panic. According to the dominant narrative, fatness or obesity is a public health crisis, an epidemic.
We asked Nightline's John Donovan to sift through all the reporting we've done on the problem over the past year to try to find the real villain behind the obesity epidemic.
Who's to blame for the United States' obesity epidemic?
Obesity is epidemic in the United States.
Britain is in the midst of an obesity epidemic.
The obesity epidemic.
The obesity epidemic.
The obesity epidemic in this country that's killing a lot of folks.
one day at a press conference, so frustrated because everybody wanted to talk about anthrax and terrorism, and a reporter inadvertently in a room this size filled with reporters said to me, well, Surgeon General, what is the most challenging problem you're facing? Of course, this is after 9/11 and anthrax. I said, obesity. Dead silence. Nobody knew what to ask me. And they said, why? I said, because it's the terror within.
In 2013, the American Medical Association voted to classify obesity as a disease. A disease is an abnormal condition or incorrectly functioning system. How can obesity be an abnormal condition when 1/3 of Americans are classified as obese and another 1/3 as overweight? Body fat is not the result of incorrect functioning. Fat results from a natural protective mechanism that evolved to help humans survive food scarcity. Our culture's valorization of thinness in women and lean muscularity in men is historically and culturally specific. At times and in cultures in which food is scarce, fat is a sign of health and prosperity. At times and in cultures in which food is abundant, thinness and lean muscularity get linked with health and class. Dr. Eric Oliver of the University of Chicago points out that U.S. cultural ideals of the female body often run counter to women's struggles for legal and social equality. In the late 19th century, as advocates for women's rights fought for suffrage and access to education and employment, consumer culture gave us the Gibson girl, linking attractiveness and class to a small, corseted waist. In 1920, women secured the right to vote as the cultural ideal for the female body shrunk further. The 1950s beauty ideal became more full-figured, coinciding with a renewed valorization of domesticity for white, middle, and upper-class women. In the 60s and 70s, U.S. women took up more space legally, professionally, and educationally, while the cultural ideal for the female body took up less space. Today, the cultural ideal for the male body has become as unattainable as that for the female body. From the perspective of consumer culture, this makes sense. If men can be convinced to see their bodies as deficient, as not measuring up, as problems, then men can be convinced to purchase alleged solutions.
That's why Insanity can transform your body from head to toe and get you in the best shape of your life in only 60 days.
This is beyond insanity. They need a new word for insanity because this is too crazy.
Cultural ideals link particular body types to attractiveness, to personality traits like discipline and self-control, and to health itself. These culturally produced linkages come to seem natural, normal, like common sense. Most of us assume, without question, that being fat is inherently unhealthy, that losing weight will improve health, and that there are effective and safe means of losing weight and keeping it off. In comprehensive reviews of medical literature, Dr. Eric Oliver, a professor of political science, Paul Campos, a professor of law, and Dr. Glenn A. Gaser, director of the Healthy Lifestyles Research Center at Arizona State University, conclude that it is more dangerous to be underweight than overweight. In several large-scale studies, the lowest mortality rates were found among those classified as overweight. Being over the medical and cultural classifications for ideal or normal weight can have a protective function when fighting a serious illness like cancer. Body mass index, BMI alone, cannot tell us what or how much a person eats, how much she exercises, or how healthy she is. As Marilyn Wan suggests, when we look at a fat person, the only thing that we can diagnose with any certainty is our own level of stereotype and prejudice toward fat people. There are meaningful measures of health: the nutritional quality of a person's diet, level of physical activity, blood pressure, and blood sugar. Independent of such measures, the alleged dangers of being overweight or obese have not been established. What have been established are the dangers of diet pills, weight loss surgery, disordered eating practices, weight cycling, losing, then regaining weight, the typical pattern for a dieter.
My husband, Eric, was the season 3 winner of The Biggest Loser.
Eric Chopin became a celebrity.
He was like just a good-looking guy.
He lost over 200 pounds, and he was on top of the world. But then, everything blew up.
I never thought I would gain that weight back.
So what actually improves health? Eating a nutrient-dense diet and engaging in regular physical activity, regardless of impact on BMI. On the effectiveness side, the failure rate of sustained weight loss is 90 to 95%. On the safety side, in the words of Paul Campos, far more Americans do serious damage to their health by attempting to lose weight than by gaining it. Damage is seen across the weight spectrum. Anorexia nervosa has the highest mortality rate of any psychological disorder, and as many as 1 in 50 persons undergoing bariatric surgery will die within 1 month of the procedure.
An inquest into the death of a 26-year-old lap band patient in Tasmania has heard she died as a result of multiple organ failure caused by infection.
Our cultural narratives of obesity serve the $50 to $60 billion per year diet industrial complex far more than they improve the health of those labeled overweight or obese. According to a review by health educator Pat Lyons, the same obesity experts who are on the faculty of medical institutions and review research for publication in medical journals also obtain millions in government grants, work as paid consultants for diet and drug companies, and run weight loss clinics. The war on fat, says Paul Campos, which is supposedly about making all of us healthy, is really about making some of us rich. The central problem, therefore, is not obesity, but obesity profiteering, weight-based prejudice, and discrimination. What can we do? Recognize that you have a stake in ending anti-fat prejudice regardless of your current body shape or size. Exposure to cultural ideals for body shape and size lowers everyone's self-esteem, undermines our relationships with others, and drains energy and time from civic and community engagement. Eat a nutrient-dense diet and engage in regular physical activity for their own sake, not for weight loss. Vote with your wallet. Support companies and organizations that promote health for everyone, regardless of shape or size. and withhold support from companies and organizations that sell their products and services via anti-fat prejudice. Support anti-bullying policies inclusive of body shape and size, and interrupt harassment and bullying on these bases. Those classified as overweight and obese are more likely to be bullied than their so-called normal weight peers, and people who have been bullied consider, attempt, and commit suicide at higher rates than those who have not. Support anti-discrimination protections based on body shape and size. In the overwhelming majority of organizations, municipalities, and states, a person can be refused service in a shop or restaurant, denied a hotel room, house, or apartment, and even fired on no other basis than body shape and size. Support public policies that facilitate everyone's access to nutrient-dense food and to safe environments conducive to activity and play. Such policies include a living wage and nutrition support programs such as WIC and food stamps. Seek out sources of information independent of the diet industrial complex. Powerful forces wage the war on obesity, and they have a lot to lose if we decide to pursue peace instead of war with our bodies. My collaborators and I stand on the side of peace, health, equity, and justice. Learn more for yourself, then decide where you stand.
The biggest reason I feel that you need to care about anti-fat prejudice is because it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere, and it's not something that we're taught as children to acknowledge or even think about. We see it as a form of bias, but we don't even acknowledge it as a bad form of bias.
I definitely feel like I've grown a different view of things. I'm definitely urging friends to not laugh at anti-fat prejudice.
Get over it, get past that. We're not children, we're adults, and we should be setting examples for younger people.
People got to grow up. People have to just know that there's different kinds of people out there in every respect you can imagine, and the more accepting we are, and the more wide variety we have in people, it really makes us better people.
I think in general we use being fat as a scapegoat for a lot of things in society. If you say that you're unhealthy because you're fat, you can ignore any systematic problems that are involving, access to health care or, the time people have in their day. If you say you're fat because you don't eat well, you can make that a personal choice and not a problem of, who has access to the food that means eating well. If you say you're fat because you're lazy, what does that mean as a society, that we're cutting off all these people who might have so much to give, but we're writing them off as lazy because of what they look like and not because of what their actual character is? I think it's doing, even if you're not what's considered fat, you're really doing yourself a disservice by alienating, really, so many people who are part of society who could contribute so much.